The chandeliers glimmered like imprisoned constellations, their light cascading in gold and pearl upon the Ashbourne ballroom. Music swelled, violins trembling with restrained hope, cellos sighing like hearts long denied warmth. Silks whispered with each graceful turn. Jeweled fans fluttered like wings anxious to escape the confines of propriety. Yet beneath the brilliance, beneath perfume and polished civility, judgment coiled like smoke waiting to stain. The evening promised beauty for some, but not for her. Lady Evelyn Harcourt stood near the marble column, posture impeccable, dignity her armor. She wore a gown of midnight blue, elegant rather than ostentatious, chosen in quiet homage to a winter sky that held stars even without summer's approval. 40 summers had brushed her cheeks, leaving refinement where youth once danced. In a room eager to dismiss any woman who dared live beyond girlish bloom, she remained steadfast, poised, and painfully visible in her solitude. Her younger sister Arabella glided somewhere amid the glittering crowd, buoyed by laughter and hopeful glances. Debutantes bloomed around her like a meadow in spring. Evelyn did not resent her sister's brightness. She had nurtured it, poured guidance into her like patient rain, shielding her from the world's sharper edges. Yet tonight, she felt the smallest quiver of longing, quiet, private, never allowed to crack the surface. A cluster of young ladies watched Evelyn from behind feathered fans, lips curled with sugary cruelty. How valiant, one murmured, eyes lingering on Evelyn's unwed hands. Still she attends, graceful as a relic. Soft titters followed, as fragile and cutting as shattered glass. Evelyn inhaled slowly, the breath of a woman who had learned that silence could be both shield and grave. Then the room shifted. Conversations thinned like mist parting for storm. The Duke of Hawthorne entered. Duke Alastair Hawthorne moved with the stillness of power, controlled, deliberate, untouched by frivolous flattery. His presence was a winter wind across candle flames. Bright heat wavered in his wake. Tall, severe in dark-tailored wool and starched white cravat, he bore the austere majesty of a man carved rather than born. Widowed, whispered society, and resolutely unreachable. His eyes, gray as frost on old stone, surveyed the assembly with aloof precision. Evelyn felt her breath catch, though she forced her hand to remain steady upon her wine-glass. She had spoken to him but twice in her life, each encounter polite, unremarkable by society's measure, yet strangely unforgettable to hers. She admired him not for his title, but for the glimpse, once, only once, of tenderness in his gaze at a charity event, when a child had clung to his glove and he had not brushed the small hand aside. Tonight, she dared only offer a courteous nod when their eyes briefly met. It was a gesture of respect, nothing more. But the Duke paused, gaze fixed upon her with an intensity too sharp to be accidental. Whispered speculations surged, like tide around stepping stones. Evelyn's heart tightened, an instinctive awareness of danger draped in velvet. He approached. Ladies leaned forward. Gentlemen stiffened. Arabella faltered mid-laugh, watching with youthful confusion. Evelyn's breath trembled, though her chin did not. She had survived greater trials than gossip. Yet anticipation curled around her like ivy, fragile and treacherously hopeful. When he stopped before her, she curtsied with serene grace. "Your Grace," she began softly, voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "I trust the season finds you well." His expression did not change, but a flicker in his eyes, pain, weariness, betrayed something raw beneath the surface. That alone emboldened her to hold his gaze a heartbeat too long, enough to imagine a warmth that perhaps had never been meant for her. "Lady Evelyn," he replied, tone neither warm nor proper cold, but weary, brittle. The music faded, though the orchestra did not stop. She simply no longer heard it clearly. "I would advise," he continued, voice pitched for her ears alone though the room strained to catch every syllable, "that you refrain from approaching me in public henceforth." Her pulse stilled, then thrashed like a wounded bird. "Pardon?" she whispered, not from confusion, but shock at the cruelty wrapped in civility. His jaw flexed, as if each word cost something brutal. Your presence invites speculation neither of us can endure. Society is merciless. For your sake, distance is imperative. Whispers flared, greedy and vicious. Evelyn's skin burned beneath their scrutiny. Though she kept her spine straight, her breath controlled. A lesser woman might have wept. She had learned to bleed without spectacle. I meant only courtesy, your grace, she murmured, dignity clinging to her like frost clings to dying petals. Nothing more. He inclined his head a fraction, acknowledgement or dismissal, indistinguishable. To her, both felt equally wounding. Conversations resumed around them, artificial and forced, yet every gaze weighed heavy upon her. A marchioness, youthful and sharp as citrus on a wound, smirked. "How tragic!" she whispered loudly to a companion. "Desperation at her age is nearly heroic." Heat pricked Evelyn's vision, but she refused humiliation, the satisfaction of tears. "Good evening," she said softly, turning away before Grace shattered. Her steps carried her not toward the crowd, but toward the terrace doors where moonlight offered anonymity. Cold night air embraced her like a confidant, sharp with lilies and distant rain. The ballroom's warmth dimmed behind her. She exhaled, a tremor slipping free at last. Pride had its limits, even steel bowed under enough weight. Perhaps she was foolish to attend these gatherings. Perhaps dignity was not armor but burden. Yet she had loved once, quietly, briefly, and believed love did not belong solely to youth. She wanted not admiration, but to be seen without mockery, valued without condition. Was that unwomanly or simply human? Footsteps approached. For a moment, she prayed it was her sister come to comfort. Instead, the Duke's silhouette filled the doorway, caught between firelight and moon's silver glow. His breath misted in the chill, though his voice, when it came, was low and taut as a drawn bow. "Lady Evelyn," he said, sounding not imperial but undone, "stay away from me, or you shall face ruin." The words fell like shards, yet his gloved hand lifted, half reaching before he withdrew it, as though longing warred with fear inside him. His eyes, once unyielding slate, flickered with a wounded plea he could not voice. And in that trembling hesitation, Evelyn felt a truth strike deeper than insult. He was not shielding society from scandal. He was shielding her from himself, from something shadowed and perilous. A secret burden clung to him, heavy enough to poison affection before it could bloom. She stood frozen, heart pounding with dread and wonder. "Why warn me then?" she whispered, knowing he might not answer. "If not to draw me nearer, still?" Dawn broke with a shy pearl-pink glow over Harcourt House, softening the bruised remnants of last night's humiliation. Evelyn had slept little. Shame and bewilderment clung to her like damp lace. She moved through morning rituals with calm hands and stormed heart. The Duke's warning echoed still, stern as command, fragile as confession. It was a wound wrapped in mystery. She ought to despise him. Instead, she felt intrigue twined with hurt, as though fate had placed her upon a precipice neither chosen nor entirely feared. A footman approached as she prepared to step into her carriage for a modest charity visit. "A delivery for you, my lady." His tone held curiosity, poorly concealed. In his gloved hands lay a single rose, pale as early frost, edges kissed with crystalline dew. A small card nestled beneath its thorn stem, "Forgive the world, not yourself." No signature, yet the words bore his gravity, his restraint folded into tenderness he could not voice aloud. Evelyn's breath stilled. Beauty could wound more sharply than cruelty, sincere tokens struck deeper than jeers. She slipped the rose into her gloved palm, unsure whether to treasure or fear it. Why offer sweetness after cold dismissal? Confusion warred with longing. She tucked the gift close and entered the carriage, avoiding her sister's curious gaze as Arabella fluttered down the stairs moments later in cheerful youthfulness, unaware of storms circling her sister's stoic heart. At the charity school, children greeted Evelyn with bright smiles and eager hands tugging her skirts. Their innocence soothed her weary spirit. She read aloud beneath sun-dusted windows, voice steady as little eyes shone with hope and trust. Here, Where rank mattered little and kindness reigned, the world felt momentarily just. Yet whispers followed, sharp as winter wind sneaking beneath doors. Two matrons exchanged pointed glances near the hearth. "So admirable, Lady Evelyn's devotion," murmured one, tone sugared like spoiled cream. "A noble distraction from social disappointments. And such a mysterious flower this morning," the other replied in a stage whisper. "Perhaps she hopes to secure attention through pity." Tittering followed, thin, brittle, unkind. Evelyn straightened mid-sentence, chin lifting a fraction. Pity? She needed none. She had survived heartbreak, once already, had rebuilt herself from quiet ashes. Still, the sting burrowed beneath pride's armor. Charity should have offered sanctuary. Instead, gossip crept like ivy, seeking cracks in her composure. When she left the school, she found him standing near the iron gate, Duke Hawthorne, severe silhouette framed by pale morning light. His presence startled birds from branches, sent children into hushed awe. Evelyn's pulse stumbled. She had not expected him, yet some part of her always anticipated his shadow. "Your Grace," she said with careful restraint, "this place is meant for peace." "I did not come to disturb it," he replied, voice low measured. "Only to ensure you were not harmed by careless tongues." A curious concern from one who commanded distance. Her tone was icy, but her heart trembled. His expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, a man reprimanded by his own conscience. "I safeguard you as best I can," he murmured. "Some dangers lie in proximity, others in appearance. And gifts." Her gaze flickered to the rose now hidden, but his breath caught as if she had exposed a vulnerability neither named nor acknowledged. "That was a mistake," he said, too swiftly then softer, "and a truth I could not suppress." She turned away before tenderness could mend where pride demanded steel, yet each step felt heavier, as though invisible threads bound them still. If he meant protection, why offer tokens? If he meant distance, why appear where whispers gathered? Rumors sprouted like wild thorns in the days that followed. A book of poetry appeared on her garden bench. Ink-soft pages marked at verses of forbidden devotion, initials obscured by deliberate smudges. Servants noticed. Neighbors speculated. Carriage wheels paused too long near her gate. Women who once nodded courteously now studied her with gleaming interest, as if she were theater rather than person. Arabella grew anxious, her youthful confidence shaken by society's shifting gaze. "Evie," she whispered one evening, twisting her gloves, "people say you are entangled. With him. It jeopardizes my invitations." The words carried no cruelty, only fear, and fear cut more deeply than mockery. "I seek no entanglement," Evelyn replied, swallowing the ache, "nor scandal." Yet truth was a restless creature inside her. She could not claim indifference. Something had begun between her and the Duke, intangible and perilous, born of pain rather than flirtation. One afternoon, as rain smeared the world into silver haze, she found a small velvet box atop her vanity. Inside lay a jeweled hairpin, emerald and pearl, unmistakably aristocratic, unmistakably intimate. It gleamed like temptation and condemnation alike. But the true shock was the crest engraved on the clasp, the crest of the late Duchess of Hawthorne. Evelyn's breath fractured. Panic surged. Why this? Why now? Such a gift was no token. It was a claim, a whisper of possession, a memory bound to grief and legacy. If seen by anyone else, it would ignite ruinous speculation. Hands trembling, she clutched the pin and rushed through storm-slick streets. Driven not by desire but fury and fear entwined, she found him near the river terrace of a private club, cloak damp, expression remote as gathering thunder. Without ceremony, she thrust the box toward him. "You overstep." His jaw tightened, not with arrogance but torment. "I should not have sent it." "Then why?" The rain carved channels along her cheeks indistinguishable from tears. "Do you torment me because you cannot decide whether to shun or pursue?" He looked as if her words had struck bone. "I placed it not to claim you," he answered, voice fierce and breaking, but to remind myself you are not mine. Silence pulsed, broken only by the river's restless whisper and her own uneven breath. Such confession was a blade with two edges, one slicing him, one slicing her. He turned away as though afraid his gaze might betray further weakness, and she stood trembling, heart raw, caught between rage and something tender, dangerous, unspoken. Then footsteps approached from behind, hurried and breathless. A young footman bowed nervously. "My lady," he stammered, "a letter has circulated at the clubs. It claims you are soon to wed the Duke." His eyes flicked between them, wide with scandal. Evelyn felt the earth shift beneath her feet. Hawthorne's head snapped toward her, face thunderstruck. His secret torment had stepped into sunlight, twisting into public farce. Her fingers clenched around the velvet box. The rain intensified, drumming like racing hearts. She met the Duke's stunned gaze, fear and conviction colliding in her voice. "What have we done?" Rain lashed London with restless fervor, turning streets to mirrors of trembling lamplight and blurred carriages. The world outside raged, yet inside Hawthorne Manor silence reigned, vast, watchful, suffocating. Evelyn stood in the grand vestibule, cloak dripping, gloves chilled, heart raw from rumor's bite. No appointment had been made, no invitation offered. She had come driven by a tempest fiercer than the storm. Truth demanded voice. A footman hesitated upon seeing her, uncertainty flickering in his gaze. Before he could inquire, the Duke himself appeared at the landing above, expression perilously unreadable, as though the world below his command had slipped beyond steady grasp. "Lady Evelyn." His voice carried restrained shock. She lifted her chin, refusing tremor or regret. "We must speak," she said softly, power in quiet insistence. His gaze tightened, but he gestured. "Bring her to the study." Formality clung to him like armor. Still, urgency warmed the edges. She followed him through dim corridors heavy with portrait eyes and echoing footsteps. Hawthorne Manor held grandeur, yet sorrow lingered in corners like dust undisturbed by time. When they reached the study, firelight flickered across carved paneling, casting shadows deep enough to swallow confession. The door closed with soft finality. Thunder murmured beyond stone walls. Evelyn shed her wet cloak, refusing offered assistance. Dignity was her last defense. She stood before him as he approached the hearth, face carved from restraint. Only his eyes betrayed tempest, storm gray, burdened, desperate for distance, and unable to bear it. For a breath, neither spoke. Then Evelyn's voice broke the hush, steady though laced with ache. "A letter circulates proclaiming my engagement to you. A falsehood born of carelessness or cruelty." She stepped nearer. "I will not be made spectacle without answer." He turned sharply, anguish flashing like a blade, unsheathed. "I did not author it," he said, each syllable edged with honesty and torment. "Nor could I stop it once begun. Gossip is a beast that feeds on the faintest scent of scandal." His hand gripped the mantle as though the earth swayed beneath him. Evelyn studied him, powerful, formidable, and yet fractured beneath quiet pressure. "Then you must silence it," she whispered, "or at least deny it." His laugh, a low, brittle exhale, carried no mirth. To deny would confirm curiosity. To speak your name invites venom. Silence shields, but at cost. She felt anger stir, not fiery but cold, forged in dignity wounded. Cost to whom? He turned then, and the fissure within him showed plainly, like cracked marble beneath lacquered polish. "To you," he answered, "always to you. Society is eager to wound a woman it cannot control." His voice grew quieter. "And you, most poised, most self-possessed, become their favored quarry." Her heart trembled at the rough reverence in his tone, but she anchored herself. "You cannot protect me by destroying my name in silence." His jaw tightened, pride and despair warring. "Yet if I stand beside you, I doom you." She stepped closer, breath intermingling with fire-warmed air. "It is not your presence that imperils me, your grace," she murmured. "It is your half-presence, your tokens and distance, your longing and retreat. You bind me to whispers and then deny me daylight." He flinched as though struck. "I never wished to hurt you." "And yet you do," she replied, voice soft as falling ash. "Not through malice, but fear." Silence trembled between them, weighted with truth unsheathed at last. "Fear," he echoed hollowly, as if the word itself were forbidden. Evelyn touched the back of a chair, knuckles pale. "If there is reason for such dread, speak it. I am not fragile porcelain to be hidden from cracks." His gaze dropped, torment clear in its descent. "You do not know what company with me invites," he murmured, "nor the shadow that clings to my name since," his breath faltered. "Since her." The late Duchess, beautiful, tragic, whispered in scandalous tones, hovered like phantom smoke. Evelyn's voice softened. "Grief does not stain honor. Grief is not what haunts me." His confession fell like broken glass. Polished composure shattered. He paced once, then faced her anew, stripped of cold hauteur, raw as exposed wound. "She loved another," he whispered. "Not me. I could not save her from ruin she embraced. I bore the shame. And so shall any woman tied to my household, judged, pitted, devoured by rumor before affection has breath." His voice fractured, years of silent pain given shape. "I cannot endure repeating such tragedy." Compassion surged in Evelyn, fierce as storm tide. Yet she refused pity he deserved, truth, not solace alone. "I am not your past," she said gently, "nor am I a fragile flower to be sheltered from winter's wind. I have lived long enough to endure whispers and remain whole." Her eyes glistened. "But I will not be cherished in secret, so you may remain untouchable." His breath hitched, as though she had spoken what he most feared and most needed to hear. "Evelyn," her name in his voice trembled between reverence and devastation. He drew nearer, not with entitlement but plea, gloved hand lifting and halting mere inches from hers. "I would keep you from harm," he murmured, "even if it means denying myself the smallest solace in your presence." She held his gaze, steady, luminous in firelight. "And I would rather suffer truth than comfort woven from fear." Her fingers brushed his glove, fleeting, electric, laden with restrained tenderness. It was the first touch freely offered between them, and it shook him visibly. Thunder rolled overhead as though nature echoed the moment's magnitude. His defenses crumbled, vulnerability flickered like candlelight fighting wind. "Tell me how to do right," he whispered, almost boyish in humility. She answered with quiet strength. "Stand beside me or stand away, but do not stand in shadow and ask me to pretend it is light." His breath caught. A lifetime of guarded solitude trembled on collapse. "You ask courage of a man built of restraint." "I ask honesty," she replied, "from both of us." The study seemed to pulse with possibility and peril alike. Then a knock shattered the fragile sanctity. A servant entered hesitantly, bearing a silver tray and pale expression. "Forgive me, your grace." "Lady Harcourt, a message has arrived. Urgent." An envelope lay atop polished metal, Evelyn's family crest pressed into wax, seal cracked by haste. With dread coiling slow and cold, she opened it. Arabella's handwriting trembled across the page. "Society knows. My prospects collapse. Come home at once before everything is lost." Evelyn's heart tightened, resolve and sorrow entwining. She lifted her gaze to the Duke, storm meeting storm. "The world moves swiftly," she whispered. "We must decide faster still." And though fear lingered in his eyes, determination flickered too, like dawn fighting storm clouds for rain. The carriage wheels cut through London's rain-slick streets like whispered judgment, each turn bearing Evelyn closer to a reckoning she had never sought. Hawthorne Manor had offered truth, now Harcourt House demanded consequence. She entered her family's drawing room to find Arabella pacing, cheeks blotched from tears, fragile youth crushed beneath society's merciless gaze. Their aunt, Lady Margaret, sat stiff as carved walnut, lips pursed with brittle condemnation. "You must deny it," Arabella cried the moment she saw her. "You must swear you feel nothing, that you have been misrepresented, anything to stop this ruin." Ruin. The words settled like ash across Evelyn's shoulders. I have said nothing to encourage gossip, Evelyn replied, voice calm despite the storm inside. And yet, I cannot bend truth simply to soothe. Truth. Arabella's voice cracked. You think truth matters to them? They hunger for scandal and you have fed them. It stung, not unjustly but painfully. Evelyn reached for her sister, who recoiled in wounded fear. I did not choose this path, she murmured, nor did I seek his affection. But he sought yours. Arabella's whisper held awe and accusation alike. Lady Margaret rose with frost in her eyes. You are no naive girl, Evelyn. You know society's appetite. A woman of your season, the paws sliced, cannot afford foolish sentiment. You endanger us all. Silence answered. Evelyn endured their fear in quiet dignity. She could not fault them. Reputation was currency, and she had placed theirs at stake without ever asking to play this cruel game. That evening delivered no peace. Letters arrived, some begging Arabella's absence from events, others politely rescinding invitations. Each one a shard of mirrored humiliation reflecting Evelyn's unintended crime. Existing where she no longer fit, near a man society had crowned untouchable. She sat by the window, watching lamplight quiver on rain-dark glass, wondering when womanhood had become a trespass. Footsteps approached. Arabella entered, trembling with weary remorse. I am frightened, she whispered, not because of them, but because I saw your face when you spoke of him. You feel deeply, though you pretend not to. Evelyn's composure slipped. Feeling is not folly, she answered, but society deems it so, especially when the heart dares after youth has passed. Arabella sank beside her, resting her head on Evelyn's shoulder like she had as a child. I am angry because I am afraid, but I trust you, and I want your happiness still, even if it frightens me. Tenderness flooded Evelyn, bittersweet and steadying. Fear does not make you weak, she murmured, only human. She kissed her sister's brow. Resolve ignited gently, like a candle lit in darkness, small, defiant, enough to guide. Days later, Evelyn ventured into London. Whispers swarmed like flies around sugar. Eyes followed, calculating, gleeful in cruelty, yet she moved through their scrutiny like a figure carved from grace. If she must fall, she would fall upright. When she arrived at a charity board meeting, murmurs crackled like flame on dry paper. A matron approached, breath laden with false pity. Lady Evelyn, perhaps it is best you refrain from such engagements until matters settle. And when shall they settle? Evelyn asked softly, steady as winter stillness. When I vanish, when a woman's dignity is traded for silence. The matron stiffened. Discomfort revealed cowardice. Evelyn turned and left, refusing humiliation disguised as civility. Each step drew her spine straighter. She would not let the world devour her, without witness. Later, she found herself before Hawthorne Manor once more. Not by design, but gravity. The Duke stood at the gates, as though summoned by the same invisible pull. His coat clung to a frame rigid with conflict, breath misting in the chill. He bowed, restrained, knowing distance remains safer than closeness. You should not be here, he murmured. Nor should you, she replied. Their eyes met storm to storm. Your silence harms you, she said, and still you choose it. I choose your safety, he answered. If I step forward, you lose sanctuary forever. And if you do not, pain sharpened her tone. I lose myself in rumor and shame while you remain untouchable. His control faltered. You think I am untouched, he whispered, voice afraid thread. I am haunted, tormented. Every breath I restrain is a blade I turn inward. But I would rather bleed unseen than see you sacrificed. Her heart ached at his torment, but pride demanded clarity. You cannot shield me by absence, she said. Absence is its own weapon. His gaze fell, but she stepped closer. I do not ask you to claim me. I ask you to stand in truth. He looked at her then, not as the Duke, but as a man stripped of armor. For a breath, the world stilled. I cannot live half a life, he murmured. Yet to choose yours may destroy it. She reached, fingers brushing his glove again, barely a touch, enough to undo him. Then let us both choose openly, she whispered, whatever the cost. That night, society gathered at the final ball of the season, a glittering display of crowns, jewels, and practiced charm. Evelyn stood alone at the edge of the marble staircase, gown soft ivory, hair pinned with understated grace. Whispers rose instantly, delighted in her audacity to appear. But she felt calm, as if peace had been sewn into her seams. Then gasps rippled. The Duke entered, not in muted morning hues, but winter white, regal and defiant. He walked through the crowd like a man walking into fire without fear of flame. Every eye followed, every rumor sharpened, suspended. He approached her. The orchestra faltered, hearts thundered. He stopped before her, bowed deep reverent. Lady Evelyn, he said, voice carrying with steady resonance, if ruin seeks you, let it confront me first. Shock seized the room. Fans snapped shut. Pearls trembled on throats. He went to one knee, a duke kneeling. For a woman's society deemed past bloom. Reverence made rebellion. If the world wagers scorn against you, he declared, it shall pay title and honor before I permit it. Evelyn trembled, not from fear, but from the enormity of the moment. Her voice barely found breath. Why now? Because, he answered, gaze burning with fierce vulnerability, I could endure solitude, but I cannot endure your suffering. 1,000 whispers burst, scandal born anew. Yet, in that instant, only his eyes mattered. Yet, as his hand rose to hers, a voice cut through the stunned hush, a cold, authoritative interjection that sliced the air like steel. Your Grace, Lady Evelyn. A senior statesman stepped forward, jaw set in grim fury. This display invites consequences grave enough to fell more than reputation. Evelyn's breath stilled. The Duke did not rise, and the world held its breath, trembling on the brink of war between dignity, desire, and duty. Silence pressed against velvet walls and breathless hearts, as though the entire ballroom braced for judgment. The statesman's voice lingered, cold authority woven with threat. Candlelight flickered over jeweled gowns and rigid collars, casting trembling shadows like doubt upon every polished face. Evelyn felt time strain, stretched thin by terror and longing. The Duke remained kneeling, unwavering, spine straight as sharpened resolve. Stand, the statesman commanded, before you seal catastrophe. His gaze cut through the gathered crowd, slicing away pretense. Your choices ripple beyond romance. You bear a country's regard. And yet I am still a man, the Duke replied, rising slowly. Gasps fluttered like startled doves. A man who must honor his own heart, lest duty render him hollow. His voice, low and steady, gathered strength with every syllable. Titles cannot warm a loveless winter. Evelyn's breath shook. That single sentence, quiet and defiant, echoed within her. She had known longing's ache. She had tasted society's cruelty. Now she watched it tremble beneath a truth spoken without apology. The statesman stepped closer, jaw tight. And if you choose passion over position, then let history say, I chose honesty where others chose fear, the Duke answered. Let scandal name me faithful rather than complacent. A charged stillness settled. Even violins held their breath. Evelyn felt her pulse thrum like a secret drum. Shame had hunted her for weeks, stalking through whispers and stares. But here, beneath glittering chandeliers and cruel eyes, she felt dignity bloom again. Fragile as spring's first snowdrop, yet stubborn in its beauty, Arabella watched near the staircase, pale but upright, hope trembling in her clasped hands. Lady Margaret's lips tightened in horror, though something softer flickered beneath, pride suppressed by terror. Society's lionesses, those hungry arbiters of worth, exchanged sharp glances like drawn blades. Their world creaked under strain. Evelyn lifted her chin. My disgrace exists only because gossip would rather invent sin than witness sincerity, she said, voice steady and clear. If affection between two souls demands punishment, then it is judgment that stands corrupt, not hearts. Her words washed over the room, quiet but indelible. A murmur rose, uncertain, a faltering wave of surprise. Not defiance alone, grace restrained by truth, dignity armored in gentle conviction. The Duke looked at her with wonder, as though discovering courage was more breathtaking than beauty. The statesman, unsettled, straightened his cuffs. Courage and poetry win applause, he said, but consequences march unromantic. He gestured toward the assembled crowd. All here bear witness. This union, this folly threatens alliances, expectations, stability. And who enacted those expectations? Evelyn asked softly. Men who never bled by them? Whispers surged like wind before storm. A young viscountess lifted her fan, eyes shining with unspoken yearning. An older matron swallowed, perhaps recalling love once sacrificed. The orchestra shifted nervously, bows trembling. The Duke stepped closer to Evelyn, offering his hand, open, vulnerable, resolute. "Walk beside me," he said, not as command but invitation. "Whatever winter may rage, we weather it together." Her heart surged, fierce and unafraid. But before she could take his hand, footsteps broke through the charged quiet. His younger brother, earnest, breathless, pushed through the crowd. "Brother," he whispered urgently, "a letter just arrived from the Crown's Council. They deliberate your inheritance as we speak. If you persist tonight—" "I know," the Duke replied, calm despite danger. "Let them." His brother's face blanched with devotion and fear, then bowed in quiet solidarity. No more protest. Loyalty had taken root. Evelyn's palm found his warm, real, grounding. Gasps scattered again, but weaker now as though scandal began to surrender to awe. Fingers intertwined, they stood not as myth, but as two souls refusing erasure. Yet a tremor quivered through Evelyn, not fear of losing him, but fear of costing him too much. Whispers turned softer, curious, almost gentle. For every gleaming eye hungry for downfall, another blinked in awakening. Stories changed not by thunder, but by human breath shifting in unison. She felt the room tilt, history rearranging in fragile increments. "Love is not rebellion," she murmured, voice trembling but certain. "It is remembrance of who we are before the world demanded who we should be." His thumb brushed hers, tender resolve, "And we reclaim it together." But the statesman stepped forward once more, final verdict poised. "If you walk out together," he warned, "doors will close. Fortune will fade. Security will rot like fruit in sun. Then let us plant new orchards." The Duke replied, gentle but immovable. Evelyn exhaled, relief and terror braided. She could endure ruin with him. She could endure anything but regret. The weight of years lifted. Expectation shed like brittle leaves before spring. Yet she knew sacrifice's cost, and she would not let him bear it alone. Before he could guide her toward the exit, she tightened her hand and turned to face the crowd directly. "I have been spoken of as if absent," she said, power rising like dawn. "Let it be known, I do not chain him. I free him from a world that fears hearts more than failures." Emotion flashed in faces around them. Envy melting into admiration, disdain into contemplation. For once, Evelyn did not bow to eyes. She let them witness her. The Duke looked at her as though seeing not scandal but salvation. Pride glimmered in his gaze, warm and luminous, but his voice softened. "We choose together, Evelyn, not martyrdom. Choice." She nodded once, an affirmation, not retreat. They turned toward the doors, steps in perfect unison. The crowd parted, slow as thawing ice. Murmurs shifted from condemnation to stunned reverence. Every movement felt eternal, each breath a promise drawn in fragile gold. Just as they reached the threshold, Lady Margaret's voice trembled through the hush. "Evelyn." Harshness gone, only aching tenderness left. "Go with honor." A tear slipped down Evelyn's cheek, quick as silver. Gratitude bloomed, painful and pure. Arabella covered her mouth, eyes shining bright as hope itself. The doors opened. Winter air rushed in, crisp and revitalizing, carrying the scent of rain and possibility. Outside, lanterns flickered like stars fallen to earth, guiding them toward a world uncharted. "Are you afraid?" he murmured. "Yes," she whispered, "but fear can walk beside courage. It need not command it." They stepped into the night. Behind them, whispers followed, no longer weapons but wonder. Ahead, dawn's first pale promise brushed the horizon, quiet but unstoppable. Snow lay soft across the street, untouched, a blank page waiting for footsteps. Hand in hand, they began to walk. And somewhere deep within the winter-dark city, something shifted, society cracking at its coldest edge, making room for spring.